So Bitcoin might have pumped by over 20% since the German government foolishly sold their 50,000 Bitcoin stack, but there are now rumors circulating that the government with the third most amount of Bitcoin is considering selling their 61,000 Bitcoin. So these are more than just rumors. There is an article that's popped out of Bloomberg today. So today we're going to be discovering, is the third largest Bitcoin holder of a government, Britain, actually considering selling their Bitcoin? Now, let's not forget, Britain is famous for selling all of its gold in 2002 for under $200 an ounce before the price of gold has just gone on a 10x rally. So keep in mind, the British government has made some terrible decisions with their treasuries in the past. So let's have a look at this brand new article. This literally dropped a day ago in Bloomberg. And you guys know, the mainstream media, they're not the best, okay? We know that there's some shenanigans posted in the mainstream media from time to time, but Bloomberg is better than most. They potentially have higher standards than most people, and that's why we're going to be looking at this article today. You guys can see, Britain has a $5 billion Bitcoin stash, and the Chancellor in England, the new Chancellor in England, named Reeves, could unleash it. So let's have a look at this article. I've highlighted this thing to shreds because there's a lot to this story. Okay, so we can see here, Rachel Reeves, nice little name there, Rachel Reeves is going to need some money. The UK's new Chancellor has inherited some of the worst circumstances since World War II. Again, always notice the similarities and the constant reminders that the world today, especially the Western world, has more debt today than it did in World War II. What happened in World War II? Well, in the whole decade of the 1940s, where we saw inflation average about 10% per year, okay? So for the whole decade, we saw about 100% cumulative inflation, meaning your currency lost half of its purchasing power in a decade, and interest rates were artificially pinned to the lower bound. But it was all to fight the war, okay? But just remember all the similarities we're seeing. When Trump initially came out with this $4 trillion print-a-thon in America, everybody was using the exact rhetoric that we have to print this money because we are in a war-like environment. We need to fight the war on COVID. Those are direct quotes from articles that I've researched in the past, okay? So again, just remember all the similarities we do see to the 2020s being compared to World War II, okay? And that is because governments need the excuse to have high inflation and do tyrannical things like unrealized capital gains taxes, okay? Again, that's a tangent. We're going to leave that to the side for the moment. Let's get through this article. So again, Britain has inherited the worst economic situation since World War II. Meeting Reeves's goal to rebuild Britain and make every part of our country better off won't be cheap. But there's a pile of cash conveniently available that won't involve raising taxes. Britain's Bitcoin holdings, okay? So that is the first paragraph of this article. And she goes on to say, look, yes, America looks to be interested in cryptocurrencies. The Republicans seem keener on cryptocurrencies than Biden. And the article even notes, look, this is very interesting. In America, the new VP, the youngest VP in a long time in America, has over $100,000 worth of Bitcoin. And then Reeves makes, the person who wrote this article, who we will be exploring in a minute, says Reeves has Bitcoins. This is the UK's Chancellor. According to BitcoinTreasuries.net, governments now own about $31 billion worth of Bitcoin. And a reasonable chunk of that belongs to the UK, okay? Let me show you some charts and some data illustrating just how much Bitcoin the UK holds. We can see here, they are the third largest holder, okay? The only two nation states with more Bitcoin than the UK is China and America. That is why I had President Xi from China, as well as Donald Trump, the potential future president of America, on the thumbnail of today's video with a chart of the amount of Bitcoin holdings smack bang in the middle, okay? We can see the UK holds $3.91 billion worth of Bitcoin. So they've got a lot of Bitcoin to sell, okay, if they wanted to sell it, and if they wanted to listen to the lady who wrote this article. Her name is Marilyn Somerset Webb, okay? But let's get back into this article. So we can see here, how did the UK get all of this Bitcoin? Well, the Crown Prosecution Service convicted and sentenced former takeaway worker turned international money launderer Jing Wen. The service also obtained a property freezing order against her assets, including Bitcoin valued at around $2 billion at the time. Okay, so the UK now holds 61,000 Bitcoin, and this is now worth over $3 billion. And the lady who wrote this article says the first thing Reeves will think about as she contemplates tapping those billions will be the decision of one of her predecessors, Gordon Brown, who sold the UK's gold holdings. Let's remember, we talked about this earlier in the week. Between 1999 and 2002, he offloaded 401 tons of gold at an average price of $275 an ounce. We can see here, Gordon Brown said, "Who needs gold when you have Greenspan?" asked the New York Times in 1999. So Gordon Brown raised $3.5 billion from these gold sellings, so to say, which again, it's interesting because this is a similar amount that's been potentially put on the table for Britain to sell if they sell their Bitcoin, about 3.9 billion, which is nearly the exact amount of gold that Gordon Brown sold in the early 2000s. But guess how much money Britain has lost from selling all of that gold in the early 2000s? It's actually over 20 billion. We did a video on it early in the week and we showed it was $22 billion. 22 billion. The big number. Speaking of losses, I have a really cool website I want to show you. We're going to come back to this article in a second, but there's a brand new website that actually shows you how much money the German government has lost by selling their Bitcoin. Have a look at this. So this is really cool. The website here is called notmadeingermany.com. And we can see here, they actually break down how much money the German government has lost by selling the Bitcoin. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but Bitcoin has appreciated by 16.75% since Germany has sold its Bitcoin. And that means they have lost around $440 million already in a week, okay? Literally in a week. Just think about how crazy that is, okay? That's a big loss. That is a really, really, really big loss in under a week from the fourth largest country, which honestly shocks me even more when we start looking at, you know, why we have these articles being written in Bloomberg of a lady trying to convince the British Chancellor to sell the country's 61,000 Bitcoin, okay? But again, as we talked about in the beginning of today's live stream, governments make silly decisions when they have too much debt, okay? Even in the article written in Bloomberg, they mention the fact that governments need to try to raise money without raising taxes, okay? That's the problem, okay? We are going to see more and more taxes, capital controls, inflation, printathons. That just means a lot of money is going to have to be printed to devalue the Western nations' enormous debt loads, okay? The US has a debt to GDP ratio of above 125% today. In the 1940s, it was 120%, okay? Again, it all comes down to economics. Speaking of economics, I want to talk about this chart in a moment regarding nation state adoption and Bitcoin. I want to go back to this article and finish it off because it's a very good article. Like you guys know, I never highlight this many words in articles. We do a lot of live streams here on the channel, but we never actually highlight this amount. But we have today. It's an important story. It's an interesting story. Okay, so let's continue on. So we can see here, the lady is saying that Reeves doesn't want to leave a bad legacy, but she should still sell the UK's crypto holdings. The comparison with Gordon Brown is history barely rhyming. Bitcoin is still not a currency, isn't an established asset class, and is unlikely to become a part of the Bank of England's reserves. Regardless of where the price might or might not go, it isn't the job of the Chancellor or the Treasury to take a punt on the future value of confiscated assets. They should They should no more hold seized Bitcoin to see what happens when they should set up an account at Airbnb for confiscated Mayfair mansions or one at the Watch Lending Club for their cachet of drug dealer Rolexes. Okay, so as you guys can see from this article, the lady doesn't seem to like Bitcoin at all. She says it's not an asset class, which of course flies directly in the face of the words coming from the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock. Larry Fink literally came out this week and he said Bitcoin is an institutional grade asset class. It is a legitimate asset. That's what Larry Fink has said, okay? Does Larry Fink know more about economics and investments than some random opinion, expresser over at Bloomberg? I don't know. I'll let you guys answer that question. But again, she's not too impressed. She says that the Chancellor of the UK, Reeves, should sell, take the cash, and pay for a few quick wins. However, she might want to sell rather better than Brown did. He advertised the plan in a remarkably naive way, and the Chancellor should also bear in mind Germany's recent experience. According to Arkham figures, the German government sold nearly 50,000 Bitcoin in the middle of June, and they have been partly responsible for pushing the price down by 15% in the pre-Trump trade weeks. Again, really interesting, as if they're trying to ascribe Bitcoin's recent appreciation to the pre-Trump trade weeks. It's like, no, Bitcoin wasn't rallying aggressively because of Trump. We showed you a chart earlier in the week. The German government kept selling and selling and selling and selling more Bitcoin, but the price would not go lower than $53,000. It was actually slowly making higher lows every day. The Bitcoin ETFs were gobbling up 4,000 to 5,000 Bitcoin per day as the German government sold 50,000 Bitcoin in a week. And I think it was very clear Bitcoin was very oversold at $53,000. Okay, as simple as that. But she's trying to ascribe Bitcoin's return to 67,000 as a Trump trade. I don't know. The news about Trump surviving that attempt on his life happened when Bitcoin was already at like $56,000 or $57,000. Still a long way off its $53,000 bottom. Just adding some context there. But this is the best part of the article. So the author says, the UK Chancellor might also forestall the mockery of the tech bros who make a painfully big deal out of why everyone should hodl to Bitcoin by relaxing crypto regulations. Okay, so there you have it. She's called us a bunch of tech bros. Anybody watching this live stream today, you are a tech bro, as simple as that. So again, I think the lady writing this article is a little bit biased. She's not a Bitcoiner, okay? But the rhetoric of other nation states potentially copying what Germany is doing is growing, okay? Other people are talking about it, and it's, certainly, watch this space, okay? You guys know, governments don't make smart decisions, as simple as that. They really, really, really don't make smart decisions at all, okay? I encourage you guys to go check out this new website. It's really cool. Notmadeingermany.com. Brilliant name, phenomenal name. They have a few different charts here. And as you can see, the price of Bitcoin's up 16.83% since Germany's sold all the Bitcoin. That's a loss of $444 million in a week. Okay, but speaking of Germany, I saw this video today. And look, economically, the German government verifiably has made very bad decisions over the past 2 weeks. Arguably, they've made very bad decisions for the past 100 years. It's the 100-year anniversary of when the German mark actually hyperinflated in 1924. Okay, and shutting down their nuclear energy sources. They are slowly regressing as a country that used to be global powerhouse, the global manufacturing base for the world. They are regressing. Okay, but not just economically. Also, just making some decisions about common sense. I want to play you this video here because this is pretty outrageous and it gives me 1990 vibes, okay? So I'm going to read you the caption of this tweet. New Saxony, the same German state that recently sold 50,000 Bitcoin, is now investigating people for wearing T-shirts with the letter C on it after the interior minister banned the right-leaning Compact magazine. So this is pretty Orwellian, if you don't mind. I'm going to play the video for you guys and see what you think.
Vorwurf ist, dass mein Niki gegen die Verfassung verstößt. Wir sind das geheime Deutschland mit einem weißen C auf rotem Hintergrund. Ist ab seit 36 Stunden verfassungsfeindlich.
Bitte halten Sie Abstand. Bitte halten Sie Halten Sie Abstand.
Sie gehen aus der Maßnahme raus. Ich verkehre Sie nochmal, soll ich dort stehen?
Okay, so there you have it. People are being arrested on the streets in Germany if they have the letter C on a black t-shirt, because C stands for Compact Magazine, and they don't like right-leaning. Literally, that's what they're saying. Right-leaning news sources. Okay. Now, again, I don't want to get political. You guys know we never get political on the channel. We don't like it. We think politics is completely separate from economics and technology. But just think about what Germany did in the 1930s when they were walking around asking people for their papers. Again, some people say it's a really bad analogy to make. But again, there is some serious hysteria in the German society right now if this is acceptable. Okay. Now, let's not forget, in 2020, they also, not to be political, they also had some of the worst, let's just say, lockdowns and medicine rules. That's what we're going to call them. So again, Germany really sliding in the wrong direction. Okay. As simple as that. Not only have they sold all of their Bitcoin, as we're about to look at in the moment, but Germany is making some really, really bad decisions. Really bad decisions. Okay. Before we talk more about Germany, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our lead sponsor, Rhino Bitcoin. Okay. So Rhino is a banking solution that combines traditional financial services with the power of Bitcoin. It's created by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Rhino offers a range of services from buying and selling Bitcoin. You can withdraw straight from Rhino to cold storage, and you can even pay other people using the Lightning Network. Okay, highly recommend you guys visit rhinobitcoin.com to download Rhino today and experience the future of Bitcoin banking. Okay, Rhino's doing some really cool things. As you guys can see, they have a few really nice animations here on the website. Highly recommend you check them out. They, I think they have the prettiest UX in Bitcoin. I think that's a pretty objective opinion. They've got a really nice looking app, and highly recommend you guys keep an eye on everything they are doing. Now let's talk more about this nation state race of Bitcoin and why I think it is so important. Because what's going to happen all of a sudden is if the UK sells all its Bitcoin. Again, we have no confirmation that the UK is selling their Bitcoin. There's rumors spreading that the UK is selling their Bitcoin. The UK has made some pretty questionable decisions like Germany over the past few years. And it really would not surprise me if they were to sell their Bitcoin. But hypothetically, if they did, if they listened to this opinion piece by Marilyn Summers, what would happen? Well, all of a sudden, that's going to decentralize Bitcoin a lot. And all of a sudden, that's going to make Ukraine the third largest holder of Bitcoin in the world. And then that's going to actually make El Salvador the fourth largest holder of Bitcoin in the world. It's pretty interesting. Think about that for a minute. El Salvador's got 6 million people. They got 6,000 Bitcoin. That is about 0.1 Bitcoin per person. Okay. I have got a video coming for you guys tomorrow, breaking down the number of Bitcoin owned per country. So stay tuned for that. It's a deep dive. It's interesting. But I'm going to give you the TLDR or the quick version. Countries like Bhutan or El Salvador are greatly advantaging their people. Bhutan has 621 Bitcoin. They only have 500,000 people. So like El Salvador, the Kingdom of Bhutan also owns more than 0.1 Bitcoin per citizen. It's really interesting. Okay. And this is how these smaller countries, these more nimble countries, are going to leapfrog the Western countries. Okay. It's happening. It's happening already. El Salvador's treasury is in profit. And I think we're going to see more of it. I think it's going to accelerate. I want to check on the chat. Chat is always lively. It's great to see you guys. We got 1,078 of you guys in the chat today, so welcome. If you're new here, subscribe. We do a few live streams a week. We got an interview drop in on Monday, actually, with the one and the only Michael Saylor. Could be the first time I've ever said that. So everybody in the live stream, there you have it. You got the inside scoop. Stay tuned for that. Higher Calling says, we're about to see who is in control of the UK. Very interesting. That's true. We can't. I hope they dump it too. Be cheaper Bitcoin for the rest of us. Nadita is the only comment on Twitter. We the tech bros. It's true. We are the tech bros. Australia seriously needs itself some Bitcoin. It really does. Australia really does need itself some Bitcoin. I will refrain from talking about politics. I am apparently clueless. I'll accept that. I am clueless at politics. I'll wear that proudly as a badge, to be honest. Politics is not a discipline I want to be informed about. And I really don't want to ever give you guys the opinion or the impression that I'm masquerading as an expert in politics. I'm really not an expert in any of these things. I'm just a 27-year-old Australian bogan. That's how I think about myself, just talking about things on the internet. Okay. Your comments are 100% visible in the chat, Cos. I can see them, my friend. I just didn't know who this person was, Zakharova. I didn't see that interview with Zakharova. That's why I didn't mention that comment. We got a few people at steakhouses as we speak. Hi, Colleen's about to order a ribeye, and so is Johnny Midas. Greetings from a steakhouse. I love it. I love it. Pam and I were actually at a steakhouse about 10 or 15 minutes ago. Okay, so guys, what I think is really the takeaway here is the UK can sell all the Bitcoin they want, but guess who's buying? El Salvador. El Salvador is buying a Bitcoin a day, okay? For those who may not have seen it, they are buying like a tech bro. They're buying Bitcoin aggressively. They are slowly but surely catching up to these Western nation states. We can see here, this is the El Salvador holdings. Right now, it's $400 million. We can see over the past 7 days, it's increased by 7 Bitcoin. And why does it look like a ladder? Well, that's because they are stair-stepping higher in the race to sovereignty, and they're buying 1 Bitcoin a day. I didn't plan on that little poem, so to say, but you can see here, they're buying Bitcoin every day. Casey's got one of my favorite questions I think I've come across in a while. What should I do with a $100 investment in crypto for a new guy? Firstly, you should stay away from crypto. There's 22,000 cryptocurrencies. I believe they're all scams, centrally controlled, and I feel like they're just replications of dollars or fiat money. There is no revolution there. There is no long-term investing potential in crypto. I'd put your $100 in Bitcoin and just wait. Learn more about Bitcoin, study Bitcoin a little bit more, and if you don't want to buy more, you'll be surprised at what that $100 of Bitcoin could buy you in the future. And I think if you do study Bitcoin for more than 10 hours, you're probably going to want to buy a little bit more. We actually showed you in a previous video. This is actually a pretty nice segue. In a previous video, we actually showed you that even $100 of Bitcoin, or the actual amount was $750 worth of Bitcoin today, could actually put you amongst the new class of millionaires on a Bitcoin standard if we assume a Pareto's principal wealth distribution is applied to a Bitcoin standard, okay? So assuming a Pareto's principal wealth distribution, there's only going to be enough Bitcoin for 80 million people to be this new class of millionaires. This kind of lines up with the world today, right? There's about 50 to 60 million fiat millionaires today. On a Bitcoin standard, we're probably going to expect something similar. And to become a part of that millionaire status, we actually concluded that you're only going to need 0.015 Bitcoin to be a part of that new millionaire class with those other 80 million people in the millionaire class who will be able to hold that much Bitcoin. So that today is worth about $750 to $900. Obviously, the price of Bitcoin's fluctuated a little bit since I was researching that video. But, you know, you got $100, that's a stepping stone away from getting to that, you know, $700 or $900 million amount. So for anyone new, put it all in Bitcoin, as Matthew says. I'd put it all in Bitcoin, but I'm an 80 IQ pleb, so that might not be best for you. I'm also an 80 IQ pleb, and let's give me a 30 IQ in the realm of politics. Okay, so I think that's a great comment by Matthew, though. That's just my personal opinion, what I would do with $100. You should do your own research. None of us are financial advisors. Could not agree more with Matthew. And with all that said, guys, there's 1,250 of you guys watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to end this live stream here. I'm going to wish you well. Hope you enjoyed the